this is, we have only gotten into the determine options and discuss. Some of us have and can come to a consensus, and others are still sort of discussing the nuances of, oh, but if we do this, then how do we answer that argument about blah, 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 right? Are you noticing that there's more complex issues to be dealt with? Or at least I hope. And then assessing ourselves and how we, as individuals and as peers, contributed to the process. Okay? So, but I would like to hear about what you thought of the actual tool itself of the structured academic controversy, because as we get into deeper issues, as we go into especially things like environmental justice, we're going to be tackling some tough issues that have no right answers, and we're going to be using different tools for decision making, and this is definitely one particular tool. I'd like to hear your thoughts about whether it was a useful tool or not, and why.
Pretty useful because I guess it kind of opens your mind, because if you already have you think you're on this side, but then you hear the opposing arguments, then it's going to be oh, and then you kind of take that into mind, so it kind of helps you have an open mind, and maybe you have and then when you make your decision, maybe you have a more educated decision, other than I just think it just should be this.
Yeah.
Well, I know that before, when I first saw the movie, I was like, whoa, I think that's awful. Nobody should get that, because I was really disgusted by it. But now I kind of I looked at the against arguments, and I'm for it. I'm against it being banned.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know the confusion of for and against. But you feel like you had a gut response, and then the information helped you sort of put together a new kind of response, whether it agreed with your old response or not.
When I watched the movie, I was like, no, and then when before we did this, I was kind of neutral, and then now I'm totally against it being banned.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so reaching all the information that my parents have told me, other people, they believe that plastic surgery is awful, so bad. But then I realized, it's not just for enforcing your breasts or making your hips look bigger. It's also for medical use, and it's to help people survive or do something medically. And so I realized that it's important to know both sides of something to really understand the question, and to really, before you take sides immediately, you have to know both of them and really enforce and talk to people, and and look at all the different options that you can do and see if you can meld them both together and be neutral.
Yeah, we get a lot of messages from a lot of sources, right? You mentioned parents and peers, and I definitely get lots of messages from different sources.
Yesterday, my dad was arguing with me, and it was about something, and I forget what it was, but he said you're supposed to put yourself into other people's shoes, and so I guess I think that plastic surgery should be banned, and that's my perspective, but I realize that that's only because I would never do it to myself, and then but then from another person's perspective, they may want to do it because they totally want to change their body. So I think maybe that that it should just stay how it is now, because there's also like other people said, medical procedures that require plastic surgery.
So would you agree that this process helped you shift from this is my perspective and therefore what you were willing to argue for very strongly to, wait a minute, there's somebody else's perspective and there's somebody else's perspective? That's an excellent point. Sometimes stepping into other people's shoes and looking at more facts can actually get us more strongly convinced of our points, but still backed up by more facts by simply going through this process. That's great. Thank you very much. Please save all the paperwork. You may keep any of the reading packets if you so choose. If you don't want to, please return them to me and pack it up for lunch.